Hello, fellow Zoidians, and welcome back to the Zoids Room. I'm Phobos, your guide through Planet Z. This is Red, the infamous Bloody Death Soarer, and this is Zoid Species Breakdown, a series where we'll be going over each Zoid species one by one, going over their stats, lore, media appearances, and finally, physical releases. Today's subject, the RZ-009 Command Wolf. So let's get right into it.
My episode better be soon.
The Command Wolf, as you might imagine, is a wolf-type Zoid. It is 14.7 meters long, or about 48 feet. It is 7.9 meters tall, or about 26 feet. Comes in at 46 tons. Its original top speed is 200 kilometers, or 124 miles per hour. But newer models of Command Wolf would have the top speed up to 210 kilometers, or 130 miles per hour. It also has a crew of 1 to 2.
Why do you need two pilots?
You're a two-seater Zoid.
Wait, I am?
As for equipment, the standard Command Wolf is equipped with a 50mm anti-Zoid double beam cannon turret located on its back, which can swivel and pivot. It is also equipped with smoke dischargers located just above its butt. It is also equipped with 4 strike claws for up-close and personal melee attacks. And finally, Electron Bite Fangs. Electron Bite Fangs.
For a Helixoid, this one seems not bad.
Moving on to lore. The Command Wolf we know today is a Helix Republic combat Zoid, developed in ZAC 2042, alongside the Shield Liger. This was about 13 years after humans arrived on Planet Z.
I still don't understand why humans stayed here.
Flying a spaceship, crashing a spaceship, and building a spaceship are very different things.
Sounds like a skill issue.
As with all combat Zoids, the Command Wolf is using the Zoid core of a wild Zoid. Unlike the Shield Liger and Saber Tiger episodes, though, we actually do know quite a bit about the wild Zoid used to make Command Wolf. Taking a step back in time to ZAC 1700, long before the Imperial and Republic factions we know today. The first recorded instance of this wild wolf-type Zoid was by the Wind tribe of Zoidians. This tribe of Zoidians would domesticate this wild wolf type of Zoid, much like humans did with dogs. Through artificial selection, these wild Zoids would become larger, smarter, and used for a variety of purposes, like transportation, contests, and defense. By ZAC 1850, Zoidian tribes had begun to grow and combine. At this point, we would enter what is known as Stage 2 of Zoid's development. This is where the mobility of Zoids would be increased by using artificial parts, usually limbs. This tribal growth would also lead to more and more frequent conflict. By ZAC 1920, it became full-on war between the eastern side of the continent, which had a more favorable environment, and the western side of the continent, which, not so much. The eastern tribes would be united under the Wind Chief, Helic Meroa, while the western tribes would be united under the Earth Tribe Chief, Gylo. Depending on your source, somewhere between ZAC 1890 and 1930, we would see Stage 3 of Zoid's development. At this stage, nearly all components of the Zoid, save for the Zoid core itself, have been replaced with artificial components. We would also see the first example of cockpits and mounted weaponry. As the war of the two tribes dragged on, both sides were beginning to feel the effects, and it seemed like there would be no end in sight. It was then that Helic came up with a plan to end the war, a mutual enemy between both factions. He came across a book from his ancestors' era, describing the northern frozen continent of Nyx, and a tribe that lived there that one day wished to claim more favorable lands.
Perfecto.
So, in ZAC 1955, Helic secretly travels to the dark continent of Nyx. Under the guise of an adventure, Helic told the leader of Nyx that the time was ripe to conquer the central continent. And so the forces of Nyx were assembled and headed to the central continent for conquest. Back on the central continent, things were going exactly as Helic had planned. The eastern and western factions were forced to work together to combat the invading force of Nyx. And though the forces of Nyx were stronger, Helic had planned for this as well. July 25th, ZAC 1956 would be known as X Day. On this day, Helix Army battled the forces of Nyx on the western plateau of the central continent. The invading forces had been adapted to the dark and frozen environment of Nyx, and so were unprepared for the blinding sunshine and scorching summer heat of the central continent. This gave Helix armies a huge advantage as they began to overpower the invaders. And Gylos' army would attack the retreating forces of Nyx, weakening them even more and driving them off the central continent back where they came from. In the aftermath of the invasion, Gylos pledged allegiance to Helix Meroa, and in ZAC 1957, the central continent of Delploy was united under the formation of the Helix Republic, with Helix Meroa as king. Yeah, he was king, don't worry about it. Sources conflict a little bit here, but depending on your source, somewhere between the early ZAC 1900s and 1960, we would get the fourth stage of Zoids development. These are the combat Zoids we're most familiar with, giant mechanical bodies powered by the core of a wild Zoid. This era of peace was also an era of industry, giving us more and more combat Zoids along with common parts that could be swapped out, like the common cockpit and joint caps. And now let's return to ZAC 2042.
What the F was that? Where am I?
Oh, hey, Red, you're back. Where have you been?
Never time warp again. I was stuck in a crazy blue box with some skinny guy for 8 months. Wibbly wobbly on and on, he wouldn't shut up.
Ooh, sorry about that. Here in ZAC 2042, we find ourselves 60 years into another war. But this time not a conflict between Helix and Gylos, but Helix's two sons, Helix II, now president of the Helix Republic, and Zenobus Meroa, emperor of the newly established Zenobus Empire.
Finally, my faction arrives.
If Shield Liger was the answer to the Empire's Saber Tiger, then Command Wolf is the answer to the Hellcat. It's quick, nimble, reliable, and can be used for almost any job you need.
Hellcats are so cute. Bad dog. Drop it.
The Command Wolf would become a Helix Republic staple from this point on, but its first notable mission was in ZAC 2043. The Republic had gathered intel that Zenobus was building a gigantic, mysterious Zoid even more powerful than Gogulus in a research facility 100 kilometers north of Darius City. So, under cover of night and heavy use of chaff, a squadron of Shield Ligers and Command Wolves headed to this research facility. Johan Eriksson and his squadron of Shield Ligers and Command Wolves rushed the facility, immediately attacking the defenses and even taking down an Iron Kong. But as soon as they did, something unexpected happened.
A bomb has been planted at the base.
The base self-detonated.
Bomb exploding.
It seems the Empire had caught wind of Helix's plans and escaped with the mysterious Zoid, leaving behind only giant, mysterious footprints.
Hee, I wonder what kind of Zoid left those.
Around ZAC 2048, we would see the introduction of the Command Wolf Mark II. This variant had slight improvements over the original, a higher top speed, and an almost Genesis-like paint job.
Republic Mark II paint jobs look so weird.
In ZAC 2056, the third moon of Z would be shattered by a comet. This devastated the planet and halted the war for some time. As a result, we wouldn't see Command Wolves again until ZAC 2099. A new model based on the Mark II Command Wolves, back to mostly its original paint job, although this time sporting the iconic orange canopy. We would see it on the battlefield again, this time not on the central continent of Delploy, but rather the western continent of Europa. During the War of the Helix Republic, now led by President Louise Camford, and the newly crowned Emperor Rudolf Zeppelin, and his regent, Gunther Prosen.
Shogun!
This continent was rich with resources and mysterious technology left behind by its ancient inhabitants. The first notable Command Wolf pilot of this era was Tommy Paris, the first lieutenant of the 2nd Independent High-Speed Combat Battalion. Though Helix was on the losing end of this war at this point, Helix higher-ups ordered Tommy's squadron, consisting of Command Wolves and Shield Ligers, led by Lieutenant Colonel Halford, to the top of Mount Olympus. Intel had suggested that the Gylos Empire was extremely interested in this position. Though they did their best to avoid detection, Tommy's squadron was attacked by a Saber Tiger on their way there. Taking losses and damage, they still managed to reach the top of Mount Olympus. And there they found an incomplete Death Soarer. The Empire had been using an ancient super technology known as the Organoid system in an attempt to resurrect a Death Soarer.
Be strong, my brethren.
An incredibly dramatic battle would ensue. Tommy's squadron almost entirely wiped out, and Lieutenant Colonel Halford would sacrifice himself to destroy this incomplete Death Soarer. The base was demolished, and Tommy was the only survivor.
Rest well, Death Soarer.
The next notable command wolf in the battle story lore was in ZAC 2100. A familiar face. Not a Helix soldier, but a mercenary using a custom command wolf that he'd found abandoned and fixed up with whatever he could. Irvine!
Yeah, you can kiss me later.
Wait, what? He's in the battle story?
That's right, everybody's favorite murder hobo Irvine was hired by the Helix Republic. Irvine was tasked with protecting Helix Rob base and all the Zoids within, including the experimental Gogulus the Ogre. A Gogulus Mark II Limited that was equipped with the aforementioned organoid system that was rebuilt by Helix based on data of what was left of Tommy Paris's command wolf. In July of ZAC 2100, the Rob base was attacked by an Imperial squadron headed by an Iron Kong PK. Irvine and his command wolf fought valiantly, refusing to give up no matter how many times they were knocked down, even using themselves as a shield to protect the Ogre. Sensing Irvine's heart and will, the Ogre moved on its own and destroyed the Iron Kong PK. As Irvine crawled out of his destroyed command wolf, Ogre opened its own canopy, allowing Irvine to become Ogre's one and only pilot.
I could take down Ogre.
The next important command wolf variant was in March of ZAC 2101, the Command Wolf AC, or Attack Custom. This variant was painted blue and equipped with a 250mm long-range double-barrel cannon. This added a significant amount of weight, so to compensate, assistance boosters were mounted to its legs to keep its top speed at 200 kilometers per hour. A little slower than the other command wolves that were 210, but still pretty good. These would be most often seen as part of the Ray Force, a high-speed division of the Republic Army used to invade the dark continent of Nyx. Though many were destroyed by the Eisen Dragoon, an elite squadron of Zenobus loyalists, led by Wolf Meroa, grandson of Zenobus Meroa, and the Bloody Demon.
What is that thing? That's not a Death Star. Imposter.
We would see another Command Wolf AC in September of ZAC 2101, and a Republican Army outpost on the continent of Nyx, piloted by our boy Tommy Paris, now a captain. His command wolf would be attacked and destroyed by Johann Stauffen of the Eisen Dragoon, who was under the orders of Gunther Prosen to assassinate Karl Schwartz.
This Tommy guy seems to find himself in broken command wolves a lot.
And lastly, a few honorable mentions that, while they didn't do anything in the story properly, still did appear, and I think they count. First up, Climber Wolf, a variant of Command Wolf made for extremely rough mountainous terrain like the continent of Nyx. Cerberus, a double-headed Command Wolf, one head containing various sensors and equipment, and the other the pilot seat. And lastly, the Empire Command Wolf. Command Wolves that were stolen by the Empire, painted red, and trained to follow Imperial commands instead of Republic.
Looks so much better in red.
Moving on to media appearances. This section will be going over each time the Command Wolf appeared outside of the battle story stuff. As always, let's start with the animes. Of the 7 Zoids animes, Command Wolf has appeared in 4 of them. Command Wolf's first anime appearance would be in our very first anime starting in 1999, Zoids Chaotic Century. The first Command Wolves we would see would be a pair of tan Command Wolves, piloted by Nero and Bianco, members of Rosso's gang.
The Avocado Gang?
The Desert The Desert Avocado Gang. They would quickly be defeated and chased off by a shield light.
Let's get out of here.
The next Command Wolf we would see would be the infamous Black and Red Custom, piloted by Irvine.
What's with the eye patch? Did he lose an eye?
No, his eye is fine, the eye patch is just cool. Irvine would use this Command Wolf for most of the series, starting with the usual back gun, once equipping it with a missile diffusion system he got from the Helix Republic, and then getting its most fondly remembered long-range cannon mounted on the back. His Command Wolf would be extremely damaged by Raven Genobreaker in Season 2.
I'll be right here, old friend.
In order to somewhat save the life of the Command Wolf, the memory banks were removed and placed inside the new model Lightning Sykes, which had its memory banks damaged in an accident beforehand.
Now run! You and me are back!
So in a way, Irvine's Command Wolf lives on through the Lightning Sykes. We would see background Command Wolves here and there, mostly as unnamed Helix soldiers. But the next important Command Wolf was the Power Reinforced Command Wolf, also known as the Command Wolf Town. This was a Command Wolf outfitted for equipment used for urban combat. It was most famously piloted by a captured Imperial soldier, desperate to escape the Republic. He and his Command Wolf were defeated by Van Flyheight, but Van ultimately chose to let him go.
It doesn't matter whether you're from the Republic or from the Empire. A life is a life, and you did the right thing trying to save his. Wars are no good for anybody.
And last up for Zoid's Chaotic Century, in a flashback showing events before the story, we would see a white Command Wolf nicknamed Zeke. This was piloted by Dan Flyheight, father of the infamous Van Flyheight. He was a major in the Helic military. His unit was attacked by an Imperial squadron, so in order to protect their lives and the life of a mysterious young boy he'd found in the desert, he and his Command Wolf would use a special move called Ragnarok Fang. This is when all the energy of the Zoid cores exploded at once with one terrific bite. This took out the Imperial squadron along with Dan and Zeke.
That kid looks familiar. Also, I didn't know Command Wolves could do that.
It's just that he reminds me a lot of my little boy back at home.
Oh yeah, I can understand that.
And now we move on to our second anime, although the first to be aired on Toonami, Zoid's New Century Zero. The only important Command Wolf we would see in this anime belonged to Brad Hunter of the Blitz team.
Don't tell me you forgot I was here as well.
New Century is more of a sports anime, and Brad's the kind of guy who tends to play for whatever team or do whatever task pays the most.
This guy sounds pretty cool.
He starts off using the same long-range cannon that Irvine used, but later in the series gets the double-barreled AC cannon. Later in the series, his Command Wolf will be destroyed by Dr. Leon. Brad would go on to then steal Dr. Leon's new model Zoid, the Shadow Fox.
Oh, so that's what your weird ears and tail are from.
Rude. And now on to our third anime, Zoid Fuser. The only important Command Wolf in this series was piloted by Helmet Titan, one of the founding members of Mock Storm, though his name is Masked Man if you're watching the Japanese version.
His original name is Masked Man?
Actually, Fusers was made in English first, so Masked Man is just what they called him in Japan. He would use a blue Command Wolf AC, kind of like Brad, except equipped with a strike laser claw. A bit into the series, his Command Wolf would fuse with a small block Zoid called Leo Striker, making Command Striker.
Command Striker!
This made the Zoid more powerful and also turned it white. And for some reason, even after defusing, the Command Wolf would stay white for the remainder of the series.
I kinda want a fuser partner. I wonder what kind of Zoid I could fuse with.
And now onto our fourth anime, Zoids Genesis. Command Wolves didn't play a very prominent role in Genesis, mostly just background units. But we would see a squadron of tan Command Wolves outfitted with that long-range cannon under the command of Parbro.
ラカンとかいうやつ、来てやったぞ。
They'd been fighting Biozoids on their own, but after meeting with Rakan and Ruji, aligned themselves with the Dagald Suppression Army.
俺たちの大勝利だ。
ルージが行かなきゃ大敗北だったかもしれないの。俺はラカンの命令で行っただけだから。
Moving on to literature, the Command Wolf would have a brief appearance in the Zoids UK comics, also known as Spider-Man and Zoids. This isn't a crossover, but rather a Zoids original comic, with later issues being written by Grant Morrison, bundled with existing Spider-Man comics.
You said Spider-Man and Zoids.
That's right, Spider-Man and Zoids, with a space in the middle. This comic takes a much different approach than the usual Zoids lore. Give it a read. Next up, we have the Zoids Chaotic Century manga. This manga would have a few background Command Wolves, but it would also once again feature Zeke, the white command wolf belonging to Dan Flyheight. In this iteration, Zeke watched over Dan's grave, supposedly dead, but with the help of the organoid Zeke, springs back to life for one final fight against Raven. Command Wolf would also appear in the Zoids New Century manga, fulfilling the same role that it did in the anime, being piloted by Brad of the Blitz team.
Finally, a Zoid that's actually in that manga.
Command Wolf would also appear in the 2010 series of Zoids concept art books. It's a short series, only 4 volumes long, but it's definitely worth a read. Command Wolf would also appear in the Zoids Field of Rebellion manga. It would be piloted by Dean Faraday, part of FES, a mercenary group that the story focuses on.
Death Sawyer is in this manga too.
And last up for manga, 3 different types of Command Wolf would appear in the Zoids SS manga. The infamous long-range cannon Command Wolf, the Zappa Command Wolf, and the Railgun Custom Command Wolf. Presumably all in green to tie in with its model kit release.
Green? Gross. Command wolves look better in red.
Now let's talk video games. Command Wolf's first video game appearance would be in 1989 on the Famicom. It would appear in Zoids 2, Counterattack of Xenobus, the sequel to Zoids Battle of the Central Continent. Like the first game, it's an overhead RPG style, but the battles are in first person. Next, we'll head over to the Game Boy Color. Command Wolf would appear in both Zoids games for this console. First, Evil God Revived Genobreaker Story in 2000. A turn-based RPG supposed to be set in between Season 1 and Season 2 of Zoids Chaotic Century. And also Liger Zero Mythical Silver Beast in 2001. Another turn-based RPG, this time set on the Western continent, following the adventures of Ulster, who would later appear in the Zoids Saga series. Speaking of which, Command Wolf would appear in all 3 games for the Game Boy Advance. This would be Zoid Saga in 2001, Zoid Saga 2 in 2003, and Zoid Saga Fusers in 2004. The second game would be translated into English and renamed Zoid's Legacy.
I'm in this game as a boss, but you can also add me to your team.
Heading over to the PlayStation 1, Command Wolf would appear in all 3 games for this console as well. First, Zoids Empire vs. Republic Genes of Mecha-Organisms in 2000, and its sequel, Zoids 2 Helix Republic vs. Gylos Empire. This is a pair of almost Final Fantasy-like RPGs, and I've heard they're actually kinda hard.
Don't be wimp.
And Command Wolf would also appear in Zoids battle card game Western Continent War Record, which is more or less the Zoids battle card game just on the PlayStation 1, with a bit of plot based on the battle story, and some fun animations. Bouncing over to the GameCube, Command Wolf would appear in all 4 games for this console. Starting in 2002, we would get Zoids Versus, and later its subsequent sequels, Zoids Versus 2 and 3. These were battle-style games with large maps and customizable Zoids. The second game in the series would be translated into English and sold as Zoids Battle Legends.
I'm also in this series, but only as a boss and playable in Versus mode.
And in 2005, Command Wolf would appear in Zoids Full Metal Crash. This is a more traditional 1v1 style fighting game.
Low kick, Hadouken.
Stepping into the arcade, in 2004, Command Wolf would appear in Zoids Infinity. This would have a similar gameplay style to Zoids Versus. It would later be upgraded into Zoids Infinity EX, and finally Zoids Infinity EX Plus, which you can still find in the Miibu Toy Museum, guarded by a giant 1-to-1 scale Molga.
I wonder what Molga tastes like.
And in 2005, Command Wolf would also appear in Zoids Card Coliseum, a tie-in to the Zoids Card Coliseum card game, doing a rock, paper, scissors style battle of cards you collect. Bouncing back to the PlayStation 2, Command Wolf would appear in all 3 Zoids games for this console. In 2004, Command Wolf would appear in Zoids Struggle, a prequel to Zoids Full Metal Crash. In 2005, Command Wolf would appear in Zoids Infinity Fusers, an updated port of the original Zoids Infinity arcade game. And then in Zoids Tactics, another strategy RPG with a story blending elements of Chaotic Century and the battle story. Pulling out the Nintendo DS, Command Wolf would appear in all 3 games for this console also. It's a very popular dog. It would appear in Zoids Saga DS, the 4th and final installment of the Zoids Saga series, which I believe the Zoids subreddit made an English patch for a few years back. It would appear as an unplayable enemy unit in Zoids Dash, a kinda cute side-scrolling platforming game.
I want to try this one.
And lastly, it would appear in Zoids Battle Coliseum, a sequel to Zoids Dash and Story, but using the rock, paper, scissors gimmick. Command Wolf would appear in both Zoids games for the Xbox 360. In 2006, it would appear in Zoids Infinity EX Neo, yet another updated port of the Zoids Infinity arcade game. And in 2007, it would appear in Zoids Assault / Zoids Alternative.
Oh right, the strategy game with all the really dirty Zoids.
In 2013, Command Wolf would also appear in Super Robot Wars Operation Extended.
This dog was everywhere.
Command Wolf would also appear in a few mobile games. In 2015, it would appear in Zoids Material Hunters. This game was set in the concept art universe. And in 2016, Command Wolf would appear in Zoids Field of Rebellion.
This game had amazing promo material.
And Command Wolf's most recent official video game appearance was in 2020, Zoids Infinity Blast for Nintendo Switch. Another Street Fighter-style 1v1 fighting game with an awesome customization mode. And though it's not an official game, Command Wolf did also appear in the work-in-progress fan game Zoids World, originally developed by Onomaro Car & Tow.
Oh right, we streamed this one and got to play as me.
And now on to the final section, physical releases. Let's start with model kits.
Let's see some plastic.
Command Wolf's first model kit would be in 1987 by Tomy. It was a snap-together motorized wind-up kit.
It didn't get its own commercial?
Sadly, no. A unique gimmick of the Command Wolf, though, is it had 2 different modes. If you turned the motor on, it would go into running mode. If you lowered the head, it would actually walk slower. This would be known as tracing mode. This same kit would be released in the UK under the name Tsar Wolf in 1988. In 1988, Tomy would release the Command Wolf Mark II, the same mold as the original, just now with the fabulous Mark II paint scheme.
Don't have this one either, huh?
Original and Mark II Zoids are kinda rare. In Tomy's 1999 or NJR line, they would release 3 different variants of Command Wolf. First one just being a slight color different from the original one, although this time it has a nice bright orange canopy instead of the original more brown amber color. The second one being an Irvine specification outfitted with the long-range rifle, which hadn't been sold on its own until that point. And lastly, the blue Command Wolf AC with the big gun. Hasbro would also release the blue and Irvine Command Wolves as part of their North American release, or the Zoids Build Customized Mobilized line. Aside from the packaging, though, they seem to be identical. In the early 2000s, as a tie-in to Evil God Revived Genobreaker story, Tomy would release 2 variants of Command Wolf, Empire Red and Midnight Blue. And for some confusing reason, the red Command Wolf was bundled in the blue box, and the blue Command Wolf was bundled in the black box. In the mid-2000s, Tomy would release Command Striker. This kit would come with a Command Wolf, a Leo Striker, and the parts to fuse them. Hasbro would also sell this kit as part of their North American release.
I kinda like the Command Striker TBH.
In the mid-2000s, we would get a special Holotech version of Command Wolf. Its armor casted in a beautiful translucent black with a red canopy. In the mid to late 2000s, Tomy would release another version of Command Wolf as part of the Genesis line. This time a tan Command Wolf to match the ones from the anime that came with the long-range cannon. This version apparently does suffer from some mold deficiencies, though. And the last iteration of Tomy's wind-up Command Wolf was in 2013 as part of the Zoids original line, this time called the Railgun Command Wolf. This version would come in a striking green and come with 3 sets of equipment. The long-range cannon version, the Zappa version, and the Railgun version.
I want a railgun. Gimme.
Stepping away from the motorized kits, back in 2007, Kotobukiya started producing command wolves as part of their HMM, or high-end master model line of Zoids. And so far, Kotobukiya has had 7 releases of HMM Command Wolf. The Kotobukiya HMM line lacks the traditional motor gimmick, but boasts an incredible amount of detail and posability. But HMMs are not the only kind of command wolves Kotobukiya has made. Around 2013, they also released the D-Style Command Wolf. They're still snap-together posable model kits, but as you can see, they're super tiny and adorable chibi versions. Also around 2013, Command Wolf would receive a 1/144 scale snap-together model kit as part of the MSS, or Modeler Spirit series. These are very small little model kits that come with their own little action bases, and they're kind of hard to find. Command Wolf's next model kit will be in 2025, once again by Takara Tomy. This is the RMZ, or Realized Model Zoids Command Wolf. The RMZ line is a line of snap-together posable model kits at 1/100 scale instead of the usual 1/72. So you can see, they're a little bit smaller than the usual Command Wolves. And so far, 2 versions of Command Wolf have been released for this line, the standard white and the black and red Irvine version. And Command Wolf's newest model kit is set to release extremely soon, the AZ Advanced Z Command Wolf. Another ongoing line by Takara Tomy, this is once again 1/72 scale snap-together motorized model kits, just boasting more detail and improved motorized gimmicks. This will also retain the running and tracing mode of the old school model. Now let's talk action figures. I think there have only been 2 Command Wolf action figures, and both of them were made by Hasbro. First up, there were a pair of small action figures, and their quality was not very good.
I think there's a few of those broken things in the Zoids room.
But in the mid-2000s, Hasbro did make a rather interesting Command Wolf action figure at 1/52 scale with lights and sounds. It's very rare and pretty sought after by fans, although more often than not, it's missing its canopy. Command Wolf would also have 2 heads on plaques, a little vinyl figure, a Coca-Cola brand promotional keychain in 2009. It would appear in both the Zoids Battle card game and the Coliseum card game. And sold at Wonder Festival, Command Wolf got a 1-blocks kit made by February Hill, with accompanying art from Mercy Rabbit. Although I don't think I've ever seen anybody actually post one of these before. Looks cute.
Helper looks so sad.
And that brings us to the end of episode 3. Thank you guys so much for joining us here in the Zoids room.
I learned a lot of wacky stuff today.
If you guys would like to read more Zoids lore and stories for yourself, feel free to head over to the Zoids Iron Bible website, or join the Zoids Cult Discord. This episode covered a Helix Zoid, so that means next episode we're going to cover either an Empire Zoid or a non-faction Zoid, so make sure you comment on which Zoid you'd like to see next. If you guys want to see the Zoids room grow, feel free to share and subscribe, and as always, Zoid on!
Zoid on, chat.